Those had Christmas decorations up since
You bet.
mid-October.
Not surprised.
We are live.
All right.
I was saying,
Okay, welcome everybody to the Village of New Paltz Planning Board meeting for November 1st. We've got some administrative business to go over, and then we have business to go through here. So let's get right to it. We did have a forum tonight, so here we go. First thing we're going to do is, did everybody get a chance to look at the meetings from 10/18/22?
yes. Yeah.
Any comments on those? Any corrections? Any edits that need to be made? No? Okay. All right. Then I would like to get a motion to approve the minutes from 10/18/22.
No motion.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
We have one abstention. All right, so next thing we're going to do is we're going to move to updates from the Village Board and Ulster County Planning Board Liaison, as well as any updates from the Environmental Policy Board. Will, you want to? No updates. Very good. So we'll move through that. So says here the Village Board has a referral, a resolution of the Village of New Paltz Board of Trustees adopting local law number effective 2022, amending chapter 212(7) of the Village Code of the Village of New Paltz entitled Zoning Map. The motion refers to the motion to refer to the Planning Board for comment. Go over that and give us a little bit of a rundown on that, if you would, please, Autumn, Ashley.
The zoning map amendments are the final piece of the puzzle in the change to the B2 zone and the movement of a few properties from R1 into R3. The changes were adopted, I believe, at the end of 2021, but the map is a separate piece of the code that had to be completed and revised, which is the document that I sent you earlier from by Bernard Marion. So Ulster County Planning Board recommended that as the final piece of trying to finally achieve the code change, and so here we are. The Village Board has done everything since comment on that from the Planning Board, but it's here now.
Okay. Did everybody get a chance to look at that? I was concerned at one point and did ask a question regarding where the Gateway and the B2B1 district began, but they cleared that up for me. Any questions at all on that? No. So are we going to do a motion to adopt that?
A motion to adopt, but the code requires, the zoning code requires that the board of trustees refer zoning amendments to this board for any comments. So what you could do is, if you have any comments, whether you're in favor or any comments regarding this amendment, then you would send a report back to the village board of trustees. So it could be simply to, you know, the ones in favor of it, the planning board could recommend adoption and then ask Autumn to just convey that, you know, comment memo to the board of trustees.
Okay. So has everyone gotten a chance to look at that? Any discussions that we need on that? Any comments on it?
So we haven't had a chance to look at it, so I don't know if there's a deadline on that memo, or even if I'll have anything to say about it, frankly, but
Okay.
just wanted to
I think it's fairly small changes, right?
Yeah, the zoning code changes were already adopted. This is the map.
Yeah,
it's
been in existence since
Yeah.
2021.
Yeah.
Like a small.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then look at it.
A lot of the properties that are that were part of it before 2021 are no longer part of the gateway. That gateway now just runs along Main Street. The properties that versus on My Street where it's Avenue, the residential properties are now in a residential zone as opposed to being part of the Gateway District. It's the same with some of the other residential areas as well. So, given that, I think that we want to make a motion to recommend adoption of this, and we can memorialize that in a memo. That
Sure, you could do a motion to recommend adoption and authorize Autumn to send a report back to the board of trustees.
very good. So, need a if that's the motion there. I need a second on it, please.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 So Autumn, if you would just go ahead and script that out for us, that would be good. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to move to public comments. Are there any people here, anybody here for a public comment, either via Zoom or in person? If so, please raise your hand or be noted on Zoom.
Yes, I don't know how to raise my hand, actually. I'm sorry. My name is
All
Dan.
right.
I'm a bad Zoomer. I have to say, I'm much better in person.
Okay, and your name, sir, again is?
My name is Daniel Roshko. I am going to be applying to open a adult use cannabis store at 98 North Chestnut Street. We have, the name of our company is Green Wolf. We have other cannabis stores. Right now, we are mainly located we are located in California. This will be our first store in New York. We are a very reputable company. We are the most awarded dispensary by High Times Magazine, which I don't imagine any of you read, but it is it's sort of the Bible in our business. So we're very good corporate citizens, and we're very much looking forward to meeting with you guys in a couple of weeks. We've already submitted the site plan, and I just wanted to, come in today and introduce myself and say that we're very much looking forward to working with you in order to become part of the community. And we are embedded in the other communities that we do work in, and we are charitable, and I think we're very good corporate citizens, and I think you guys will enjoy having us there.
Thank you, Mr. Roshko. Now, if anybody is wondering where that building is, that is the old Stewart's building.
Exactly.
Where that's going to be proposed. So thank you for coming for us. We do appreciate it. You have reached out, obviously, then to Autumn, who handles the projects for us, and she'll be able to get you lined up and get the information that you need so that you'll be able to come before the board in a reasonable amount of time. And that will be a change of use for that building.
Right. Yes, and we've already submitted the application to the planning board, so that's in. I think it'll probably have to be supplemented a little bit, but we wanted to get it in so that we could really get the ball rolling because we're excited about this project. Wanted to get in front of you guys as quickly as possible.
Very good. Well, thank you for coming here. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
I'm sorry, I do have a question for you. Can you tell me what's your business again?
It's an adult use cannabis store, so it's a dispensary, a cannabis dispensary.
Will that simply be a dispensary, or will that be a dispensary with a lounge?
No, there will not a lounge, just solely a dispensary.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Very
All right,
good.
thanks. Thank you. I'll see you guys in a couple of weeks, I hope.
Look forward to seeing you.
Thank you.
So the next, is there anyone else here that has a public comment?
Well, I think that's something I need to ask you. Sorry to interrupt you. He within the doorway. I don't know if we're sharing the door. Thank you so much. You're welcome.
There we go. So the next agenda item for us is public hearings. There are no public hearings. So we will be moving past that, and we will then be moving on to application reviews. The first application review is PB 2208 8793 North Chestnut. Mr. Leibold, is the applicant, and it's an application for special use permit of a retail business not otherwise mentioned for proposed cannabis dispensary. We have had these folks up here before, and we are now at the point where if we have any final questions, we need to ask them, because we do have a potential draft resolution with any sort of modifications that may come as a result of asking any questions. Any questions for them?
It sounds like you're gonna have a competitor right across the street. How are you going to react to that?
I don't know. This is the first we heard of it. First we've heard of it.
I wonder, I may have to seek our attorney here, is that even permissible under state law that you can have dispensaries within 75 feet of one another?
So it's really up to the state where they give those licenses to, and none, my understanding, none have been issued yet. So whether they're gonna have some restriction on, as far as distances between, that really yet to,
Well, for the record, I hope we don't have two within 75 feet of each
Another applicant, and one is an applicant that's on the resolution, and one is a public.
Okay. So with that in mind, any further questions of our applicants here?
I did have a question about one piece of the proposed resolution. I think it referenced a delivery service. Now, I admit I wasn't here for all the hearings up to this point, so I apologize for that. But can we re-explain that? If it hasn't been explained.
Sure, David, why don't you give them just a brief on the delivery service?
Yeah, the idea is there's a single vehicle that the dispensary would be using that is able to deliver their product, which is acceptable under the state laws.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
That you can have delivery service.
Right.
Okay.
I mean, to be super clear about this, right, the state is incredibly rigorous about it. It's not like suddenly the village is going to do something that is not compliant with the extensive state program. Right.
Okay. But let me just say this. I also, what little I've read about this in the last 24 hours, and I think our attorney referenced this, I think the state is still in the process of continuing to do some regulatory things, some oversight things. They may even be doing some legal things. Who knows? And I don't want our resolution, I want to make sure that our resolution doesn't end up contrary to state law.
I mean, if I may, there's nothing that we can do here that will override the state law. So
Okay.
So this
Correct me if I'm
resolution
wrong.
in particular has a specific condition that does require conformance with all state laws and regulations. And then also, we always have a standard general condition that conditions the resolution on compliance with all other regulatory approvals that would apply. So if
Okay.
things change with the state, then,
they have to adhere to whatever.
and if
Okay.
for some reason there was something that the state said that would be, require some type of amendment from this board, then they'd come back and handle that there.
Thank you.
You know, a lot of this is still up in the air, and we're still waiting for the final guidance from the state. And whatever they say is what's going to have to, it will supersede a lot of the local laws, so. All right, so with that in mind, we have a special use permit for net zero development here. Madam Attorney, would you like to just kind of run us through here on this?
Sure. So I do have some comments or questions too, based on the email you had sent earlier. And the first is the application summary. So right now it's described as a special use permit approval of a retail business or service not otherwise specifically mentioned for a proposed cannabis dispensary up to 4,000 square feet in an existing mixed-use building located on an approximately 1.45 acre parcel. So I know there was talk about potentially a medical cannabis facility, which that would be covered by this. We could talk when we get to the conditions as far as whether it would be, there'd be different traffic requirements for that, but you had also mentioned potentially the retail, so that's something I think that would be different than the cannabis, so I just wanted to see if that is something that should be, if that's something that's going to be sought as part of this approval, just have that.
Well, let me ask you, the intention is, as the potential cannabis concerns have explained to us, they have no idea how long it's going to take to acquire the social equity license or the eventual commercial license from the state. The way they kind of like to baby step into it is to potentially pursue things short of a recreational marijuana dispensary so that they can get off the ground and get going, right? And the two ways they can do that, as they've explained to us, is a medicinal dispensary or a, you know, like a CBD product.
When you say the
Cannabis concern,
Okay.
which there are a couple of different
Yeah.
ones. I use. And so it would behoove us to enable them to have that kind of flexibility. You clarified that the general definition that you have here covered both medicinal and recreational is right. I guess the only other question is whether there's the ability to add the CBD thing, which would be, I think, isn't that that might even be covered under our existing pre-approved resolution of general retail.
Yeah, I'm not sure, so that's something I did, I wasn't able to discuss it with the building inspector today, I tried to, so I don't know whether that's something that would be covered and then wouldn't require this. But it is people strictly for a dispensary, so I don't know.
Let me ask you this, if we went forward with this as written, barring the other two questions that we'll talk about. And then we found that this CBD product did fall under the general definitions included in our pre-approval. Could we append, or could that just be something we can seek with the building inspector separately?
If
What would be the
something,
best
if there's
path?
already an approval, I think then you wouldn't need to come back to this board, but this approval would have time restrictions as far as in order the special use permit's only valid for a certain amount of time. So if it's not a year, so if it's not exercised within that amount of time, and if you go a different route, then just know that you have to come back to this board for the dispensary. For a renewal.
Understood.
Yeah, could we get an extension?
Yeah.
So this would
Or
cover
they
both.
have Extensions, but if some, either an extension or a reapproval, however. they may go.
Generally, we come back for reapproval. If you haven't done anything, you have to come back before the board, and we essentially look at what was approved, review it, if there's anything else that's been added to it or taken away from it, and then we vote to either approve or not approve for essentially the exact same application and
But
approval.
if an operator invested a sizable sum to fit the space up, which is going to take, just by watching what's happening in the building, it takes a couple of months to get through Cory and get a permit issued because he's backed up. And then it takes, with where we are with the supply chain, like Noah's Dragonfly Coffee took in the whole season to actually get the equipment that he was looking for and the retail fit up to get him, unstable nervous breakdown. So if we had an operator who wanted to start the process, assuming it's going to take him most of next year to get the place fit up and ready to go, and then, the recreational licenses aren't out yet, which who knows? I mean, they're supposed to be out already and they're not, and I work with the state a lot. Their tact was, okay, we made this capital investment, we would either seek to bring in a medical dispensary user, which are just mainly appointment only, it's a call and show up per prescription, or sell cannabis related like CBD products, which are legal to sell now as an interim step, so they can generate some revenue on the space till the actual dispensary open. But if they invest that money, does that vest them in the special use permit, or would they actually have to have the licensing open?
So that is a good question. So it depends on the trigger for the 1 year, it's exercising the special use permit. And typically, you would start, something that required a building permit, and you start construction that I believe again, it would be in the building inspector's purview, but would be exercising it, but this would be if that license is in place until at that time, then that creates kind of another layer, and whether that has to, occur within a year in order to be considered exercise, because they can't operate without that, so it may require,
Something that's worth some thought for this board. I know Gardner's starting to think about it because we're starting to get multiple interest and it's special permit. And what happens if, we get 5 or 6 individuals who come before the board and want this? How do we figure out, our thresholds, just like we've got this here? So I know that both the state that we're talking to, social equity, and the other users are all, they want to begin the process to fit the space out.
I think I understand the scenario you proposed, and as I look at the specific conditions in the proposed resolution, it indicates that the approval is conditioned on the applicant obtaining a license and that the permits would not be issued without the license being presented. So there couldn't be a scenario where that bid out would be underway prior to obtaining a license in the current resolution.
And that's.
and they are asking, one of their requests is to have that change to require the license as a condition of certificate of occupancy, which by doing that then does put that risk on the applicant.
yeah.
And that's something that the structuring it this way then would ensure it's all in place before they would start any construction, but if the applicant's asking for it to be condition of a CO, then that, if it's just the risk on them and their investment, no guarantee that they'll get the
And
license.
if that were the choice, I think we would rather take the risk and apply for an extension towards as that year, as we reach that year, than to wait for a building permit before even, to wait for the license before even beginning construction, right? Because that's a killer.
I mean, this is
Right.
not, I have just a general question. I don't even know if I'm allowed to ask.
Go ahead.
I mean, I have feelers out, or like, do you have any anticipation of when they're going to start distributing? I mean, I've heard, February, like, do you have any?
Third quarter of this year.
Yeah, I mean, no, I heard this fall and it's like,
So what's interesting to us is
it's like
the
builder's risk,
social equity program. I'm on the phone with them.
Yeah.
Twice a week right now. So they have a lot of questions about the resolution. They want to see that resolution and get this intact, but they've already got architects and build groups lined up for the first round of social equity licenses that we're going to hand out.
Is it something where the state wants to see an approval from the local
The
board
local
before they'll
municipality.
consider?
And then they want to begin the process, providing we can come to terms on some things. They want to look at the resolution, come back with some questions, and then.
Actually, if this were another store that would require a license, like a liquor or tobacco, would this condition always be the case, that they produce the license before they can be issued a building permit?
Typically, it depends. I think we had one recently that was a smoke shop that I want to say
Yeah.
did have.
Yeah.
There was a specific county permit, a license that had to be required, and let me check.
That's
if
the one
that
that
was-
connects to,
but they might
Starbucks.
not have-
Area.
the Gillicuddy, it's like the
Yeah.
back one.
I can't recall if they required, if it's also an existing building, so they might not have required a building.
There was
permit
also a
for any-
pre-existing.
right,
Oh, yeah, that. new
next to
one.
Starbucks, yeah.
Within the scenario, the only risk is to us, right? If the village grants us the building permit, but then for some reason doesn't grant us the CO and we've invested a ton, that's all, that risk is on us. It doesn't hurt.
100%. No, no,
No,
that's.
So
what
I
I'm
it's
talking
important that,
about.
that you understand that,
So we'd
that
rather
you're
take
taking
that
on that
risk.
risk, and it's not.
So really, the choice that you have is we can, and walk me through the dilemma that we have here. The state is asking for a resolution which allows you to begin operation as a special use. But the special use that we have in here requires that they get a license from the state. So
But we can issue the special use before they have.
It's
before they
conditioned
have
it.
on-
and then have that as a condition.
I,
It's a condition of satisfied in order to
The only reason why,
exercise that special permit.
the only reason you're here is because you know that risk, right? So I just don't understand that.
Yeah,
just to
I
be
mean,
clear.
obviously, they can't open without the state
Yeah.
license.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's no,
It's just that the resolution's written wrong if we want to read to what we'd like to see, and that's what we have.
What's the issue in that definition?
The issue is that the resolution asks for the license to be presented before a building permit could be issued.
But the state is asking for a building permit to be issued.
no.
No, I think the state is just asking for
Evidence that you have an approval to
So,
cite
approval
the
resolution.
business.
Not there.
So then, yeah, it was framed this way to
Okay.
avoid that risk where they
Okay.
would, there wouldn't be anything building wise done, but they're asking for it to be, the CO, so the board can modify that and just, it'll be up to the building department to make sure that that condition's satisfied before issuing it.
And the only reason I was asking about other other special uses that require licenses, because I didn't know if the village code and or if there's other precedent for us shifting the sequence of producing a license to the CO or the building permit. If there's nothing that says we're not allowed, that we're allowed to do that, or excuse me, if there's nothing that says we're not allowed to do that, then I don't have an objection to it. But if there's
Yeah, I'm
something
not
we
aware
should
of
know
anything
about
that
that
says you're
says
not
that,
able to do that, whenever you're doing an approval, there's all different types of conditions, some that's more appropriate to tie to the issuance of the building permit, others to a CO. Sometimes it's a new site plan, you want things done before the plans are even signed, so there's always different.
Okay.
And I think for this one, it's because this use itself is, can't happen at all without the state.
Yeah.
That's why it's a specific condition to have that license
Right.
at some.
And then the third, that's great. The first one, we're great with, that you clarified the medical and recreational use are both covered. The second one is is tying it to the CO as opposed to the building permit, the license. And the third
So
one
I think we
was,
could just stop, and if the board wants to make that change in the resolution.
I'm fine with that, yeah.
sorry, thank-
Yes, I just wanted to.
Well, let me get that written in.
And the third one was, we saw that you had put the delivery time sequence, you had taken it out of the traffic management plan and put it in the body of the resolution, which was never the intent. The intent was that simply to be a condition to manage, that initial surge of traffic. So we don't want to over constrain the dispensary with their deliveries beyond, once we resume normal operations.
So it wasn't clear to me the way that there was a time limit on that in the traffic plan, but I did speak to the board's traffic consultant about it, and it's moved on as well and can confirm, but.
We were talking about a restriction being you were saying a couple of weeks as far as the time, yeah.
Yeah,
But it
During
wasn't,
the initial, it
Yeah,
has to be at
the
least 2
third.
weeks of the appointment based only on the monitoring, and then,
Yes.
so that can be extended depending on the demand and what occurs during that initial 2 weeks. So it would be, and I did propose a modification to the resolution to address that.
Yes.
So I would propose to take out that specific condition number 2, and then add in in paragraph 4, where it's the condition number 4 discussed the traffic management plan. And it currently has letters A through
Yeah.
F.
AQF.
So it added a G. All deliveries to the dispensary shall be limited to no more than 1 delivery per day to occur before 12 PM during the time the appointment system is in place.
Okay.
And then that would be allow that to change after.
Okay.
And currently,
After
that's-
that 2 weeks.
if there's no issues
Right.
with the old during that time. Carlito, you were okay with that change?
Yeah, we were comfortable with that revision.
And I guess I believe the last issue that was raised, that if they are to go to a medical dispensary instead of the recreational, whether the traffic plan will apply or the traffic plan is only applicable when there is that recreational.
I think it's only applicable with the recreation.
So that could, we could add in.
Well,
You disagree?
what I'm trying to think, of practically speaking, if you opened a medical dispensary and we waived that,
For the
many
medical.
medical dispensaries also then obtain a recreational license at some point. So then we have to write something in that
But then
says,
the
but if
condition-
they shift back to a recreational license, then this traffic.
Yeah, well, that's our
Yeah.
intent.
Yes, that's our.
The moment it flips to a recreational and that traffic management plan applies.
So I think we could modify specific condition, which after taking out number 2 would be 4, to say the applicant shall follow the revised traffic management plan for a dispensary use at Zero Place dated August 27, 2022, including but not limited to use of an appointment only system for a minimum of 2 weeks after opening a recreational dispensary. And ongoing monitoring study. Does that make sense? Is that what it's called under the law of recreational
Recreational use
dispensary or?
marijuana or cannabis. I think how they spell it in the law.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, no, that's great. That gets us everything that we need.
And-
If that's satisfactory. to you guys.
Then would you still want an opinion on whether the space would be usable for sale of something other than THC cannabis, like CBD products and the like,
I could talk to Corey. Just see.
under the existing Zero Place permission? So that means you could open that without even
Yeah.
having this resolution. And if you judge by how many, of what a variety of stores are selling those types of products, I'm assuming that could be like a candy store.
Sure.
Well, actually, why don't you take this then, now that we've kind of reached a consensus, why don't you take us through the specific conditions, please?
The condition number 1. This approval is conditioned on the applicant obtaining a license in New York State to operate a marijuana dispensary. I guess that should say cannabis dispensary to be
Yeah.
consistent.
Yeah.
Prior to the issuance of the certificate of occupancy, proof of such license shall be submitted to the building department. This approval is for retail cannabis dispensary only. No on-site consumption is authorized by this. The cannabis dispensary shall operate in full compliance with all applicable state laws and regulations. Number 4, the applicant shall follow the revised traffic management plan for a dispensary use at Zero Place dated August 27, 2022, including but not limited to use of an appointment-only system for a minimum of 2 weeks after opening a recreational use. I think I'm going to modify this, sorry. I think it'll sound better. Number 4 shall read, upon opening a recreational use cannabis dispensary, the applicant shall follow the revised traffic management plan for a dispensary use at Zero Place dated August 27, 2022, including but not limited to use of an appointment-only system for a minimum of 2 weeks after opening an ongoing monitoring study. A, the monitoring study shall monitor the parking demand for all uses on the property, as well as counts of the numbers of customers to the dispensary and needs of dispensary customers' arrival, e.g. personal auto, walking, biking, public transportation, etc. B, the applicant shall project future demand upon discontinuation of the appointment-only system, including determining how much additional demand was experienced beyond the allowed appointments and use of a waitlist system to report on the additional demand that is discussed. C, no walk-off or walk-in customer shall be permitted during the appointment-only system, during the time the appointment-only system is in place. During this time, any such customer shall be turned away from the dispensary and directed to book an appointment. D, the applicant shall monitor parking during the appointment only system to ensure the proposed use can adequately accommodate peak parking demand. Monitoring should include surveys of all existing uses to demonstrate how shared parking is being employed on site to serve a mix of uses. E, the appointment only system and related monitoring study may be extended beyond 2 weeks if deemed necessary by the building inspector based upon the findings of the 2 weeks of data. F, the appointment only system shall remain in effect until the building inspector determines the data provided by the monitoring study clearly demonstrates that the demand no longer warrants the need for the appointment only system. If the demand exceeds capacity after the initial 2-week period, the appointment only system and monitoring study shall be continued until such time as it is demonstrated to the satisfaction of the building inspector that it is no longer necessary. G, all deliveries to the dispensary shall be limited to no more than 1 delivery per day to occur before 12 p.m. during the time the appointment only system is in place. Number 5, all signage must comply with the sign plan for Zero Place, application number PB 1602, and village sign regulations as to dimensions, color, and lighting. 6, all conditions attached to the resolution of approval, subdivision, special use permit, and site plan for Net Zero Development LLC, Zero Place, application number PB 1602, issued by the Village of New Paltz Planning Board, dated April 5th, 2018, and filed in the Office of Village Clerk on that same date, and amendments thereto are made part of this approval, and this approval is subject to the same as if those conditions were set forth herein at length, except as otherwise specifically superseded herein. And then you have your standard general.
Thank you. All in agreement? Yeah, okay.
One last question, sorry. If, and just to clarify, what I'm hearing from you is that if an additional dispensary opens within this 1-year time frame, what happens if medicinal cannabis dispensary opens and then upon a year after this resolution, passed, the 1-year anniversary of this resolution, then a recreational use dispensary? Is there any?
Well, the medicinal, I presume, would need a license from the state as well.
Right.
So you'd have a license in place. I think you would, you'd already be exercising the special use permit. Is converting it, because it doesn't specify.
Right.
It specifies that there's a trigger for the traffic plan if it's a
And if you
recreation.
don't get to a medicinal dispensary before the 1-year anniversary, you need to get here prior to the 1-year anniversary to ask for an extension.
Correct.
Good.
Yeah. We finally get to that point now.
So if I would just ask to, when you're doing a vote, you could do it by roll call.
Absolutely. So I would like a motion to approve the resolution for PB 2208
So much.
As amended.
as amended. Thank you. Some motion. And then what we're going to do is then ask for a roll call vote for final approval. So we'll ask our project manager to make the roll call vote, please.
I think Raquel made the motion. I don't know if there was a second.
In a second.
A second.
Okay. So now we're going to go for all in favor through a roll call vote.
Aye.
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 Only 5 members should be.
1, 2, 3, 4. Oh,
I'm not
yeah,
supposed to vote.
so, and Rachel was there, so we've got 5 members there. So the motion has been approved. Thank you. So the next application, please, is PB 2212 6 Grove Street. So, application for site plan approval to construct an approximately 418 square foot addition on an existing single-family dwelling. Our next steps are to review the draft resolution and adopt with any necessary modifications. Do we have any modifications on this? I think we did.
There's specific conditions in the resolution.
Yeah. So the specific conditions that are in the resolution are prior to the signing of the plans, the address and the title block on the plan shall be changed from 4 Grove Street to 6 Grove Street. Prior to the signing of the plans, the applicant shall submit a signed application identifying both parcels involved. Okay. And prior to the issuance of a building permit for the proposed, the applicant shall complete the driveway improvements and remove the existing garage and concrete that encroaches on the adjacent lot. Okay,
I'm sorry, I was missing a word. That should say prior to the issuance of a building permit for the proposed addition.
proposed addition, okay?
The building permit. And then I did have some blanks that I needed filled in to the date.
Those were all done? Okay. So then it goes through the basic general conditions. And we come to the end here. I'd like to get a motion to approve the resolution for 6 Grove Street application PB 2212
As amended.
as amended. Thank you.
So motion.
A second? And we'll get, as usual, on approval of the resolution, we'll have our project manager do a roll call vote.
Aye.
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 Aye. So the motion is approved. Thank you very much.
Look.
That takes us now to PB 2215, 123 Main Street, Southern Acquisition Company. I saw him when he stepped outside. You're up.
All right.
You, any peanut allergy, David?
Okay, gentlemen, we've got some next steps here that have been given to us, including that we're going to discuss some of the issues that are below here, or that are part of this, and we're going to need to ask a few questions. So I'm actually going to ask our attorney to walk us through this one as well.
Sure. So I think there's a question that was discussed at the last meeting for the secret classification and what was to be considered the whole action for this project. I did go back and watch the video and saw that basically it said you might be looking to develop the property or the group of these properties at some point, but right now there's no real plan for that. And this what's happening or what you're seeking approval for is not really part of any future development. Any such future development would be, and if I'm wrong, just jump in, tell me, any future development would of course be subject to its own secret review. So on that basis, I think it would be appropriate for the board to classify this application as an unlisted action and proceed in that fashion.
Okay,
So, as I said in the last meeting, we're only here to clear the violations. There are two existing violations that were granted or that were put on us. One was for starting construction without site plan approval. And one was a requirement to get a building permit. So we appealed to the ZBA. That didn't seem to be going anywhere. So we decided, okay, we'll change course and we'll come here. So what I am seeking is site plan approval to really to maintain. That's all I want.
Can we remember, what was the daily fee that you guys were paying, like,
But we're not paying it because we appealed to the
Okay.
ZBA.
there was a,
There's a $100 a day fine that goes along with it, which we have to figure out too. Because this has been running in the background for almost a year.
Actually, on that determination, and I'm not disagreeing with it, but I just want to make sure I understand. So the brackets put in the seeker language are that there's some sort of a definite plan and then there's wishful thinking. And it just seems like, two very wide poles there. If what they're really saying is, well, what are they really saying? Like, what would be the threshold for which we would have to consider the applicant to have something more than wishful thinking? Disclosure in the meeting that there's meetings taking place about the potential for a development does not meet that threshold.
It's really twofold as for, I know here there's a few different parcels involved and what was done for seeking approval for clearing in this area, whether it's the drainage or to maintain the drainage, and whether that would really be related to any future development. So it's really a case by case. There's no bright line rule as far as what it's up to the board to determine based on what they hear from the applicant and what they know, what is to be treated as the whole action. And even if there is, a segmentation question, there are times when segmentation is permissible. So if the future phase is speculative or functionally independent of what the first phase is, then you are allowed to have a segmented review, and that's something that just has to be referenced in any determination of significance. So kind of as a belt and suspenders, then reference that, as well. I think the important part of the segmentation is that it's not going to make any the environmental review any less rigorous. So it's not someone splitting up a bigger action into two smaller ones to avoid environmental review. If it's anything that happens in the future is going to be subject to
so
that.
just to clarify, like, so let's say we approve this to clear it and get them up to code, I hate using that term, but anything that they do with the property after that will still have to come in.
Yes,
Correct.
anything if it's
No,
requires.
I just want to make sure.
yeah, we're just dealing with a really discrete.
Yeah, no, I get it. I just want to make sure. It's
Yeah, and
really.
If you look in the village code, I'll give you these guys under the violation. If you look into village code section.
I think the board, are you ready to make your?
I think, yeah,
Yeah,
that's
I
just-
don't think we need that.
Yeah, I think we're okay. Let's just let's move on here. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to take a vote on classifying this as an unlisted action. So I would like a motion to declare this an unlisted action in seeker. And a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So this is now an unlisted action according to seeker. So the next part that we have to go through, Ashley, you want to continue with that?
You also do need to, just sticking on speaker here, we will need to review an EAF part 2 and ultimately make a determination of significance. So I believe you set a public hearing for this already. If you want to authorize me to prepare an EAF part 2 for that meeting, I believe it's December.
When do we have it? December 20th. So what we want to do then now is to authorize our attorney to produce an EAF Part 2.
Yeah, so I guess you would also, first you would do a motion to assume, you could do it as one, motion to assume lead agency
Okay,
and under
then to
seeker
produce
and
the-
authorize planning board attorney to prepare an EAF part 2 for your
Okay.
December 20th.
so
Motion to assume.
motion
lead
to
agency.
assume lead agency
that's because
and
there's
then
no
have our
other
attorney, okay,
And to authorize.
and to authorize our attorney to produce the EAF Part 2.
So moved.
Second? Second. All in favor? Aye. Rachel?
Aye.
There we go. Okay, so we have 2 of those pieces taken care of. The last thing we need to do is to discuss whether we would like to have our village engineer review the effects of the clearing.
Yes.
Okay, Rachel would like to have the village engineer look at the effects of the clearing on the wastewater and on any of the erosion in the land, that sort of thing. Thoughts on that? Terry, any thoughts while you're here?
You know, I hate to put too much of an unknown, a burden on people, but let me just go back to what you did. And maybe this is because I missed it last time, or maybe you explained it before I got here. But my understanding is you basically cleared a stormwater drainage area.
No. So this property, I actually have our civil engineer, Barry Medbox here, and he could probably explain it a little better. But
Go ahead, we'll try.
so this property has a drainage ditch that this property owner drains into. When you gave site plan approval to the Lemon Squeeze, they took all of their water on their roofs and their parking lot and discharged it into this, which they didn't do before. If you go downstream a little further, this guy, John Johnson, also is created a lot of impervious area. He has a retention pond and then he spills over into this ditch. So this was a pre-existing ditch that was silted shut. And when it does flood, it floods the condos out. Plus the way the pipe is, it just clogs everything up. So what I did was, there's a fairly steep slope to get down there. I cleared the brush so I could get a mechanical machine in there to clean it. And I got a cease and desist order for clearing the brush and a stop work order, which are a violation of starting construction without site plan approval. That's why I'm here. And I got a second violation for starting construction without a building permit. So what I'm here to do, and if you look in Corey's violation, it states, and I correctly states that I cleared approximately 45 square feet. So that's what this is. Okay. So what I want to do is mechanically come in and clean this ditch because it's completely silted shut.
What are you gonna do with the spoils?
I'll put them up in the bag. The ditch is only this wide.
Okay,
It's this wide. It's about this deep. So
Okay.
it's a very small ditch. It's not.
if you leave it on your property, you can't put it on a neighbor's property.
No, no.
And-
And really what I wanted to do, so this is all rough grade. I wanted to clean it all up. So we're just trying to clean up the property. The previous owner had a completely different standard of care than we do.
Okay.
And we just want to mow the property, maintain it, clean the ditch, mow the lawn, dress up the areas so that it looks like somebody cares. It's really all we're trying to do. And ultimately, we do plan on putting a hotel there, but we're just not ready. We weren't ready a year ago. We're not ready now to come here with a formal solution.
My thing is, I don't think we need to have an engineer look at that 4,500 or whatever that linear, how long is that? Well, but that's just my opinion.
Okay.
That's all.
And I think
Where
my
does the
thought is
go?
that I don't- Hang on just a second, Rachel. I think my thought is that I don't have the expertise to have an opinion on whether the specific work that is they're proposing to do could
benefit to the way you want it to benefit, or could to create a situation that is less beneficial to the neighbors that are involved and.
Right now,
So
when it floods.
I'd rather see the engineer review.
From my professional thinking, which I do for a living, I don't think, I mean, it's straightforward. I personally don't think it's a good engineer.
We're not, there's not any other than do the cleaning up, taking the mucking out this.
Hold on, let's let the board go ahead.
What was Rachel?
Rachel, I'm sorry, you were speaking up, please?
Oh, yes. My question was, where does the water eventually go? I mean, it's a ditch, but it's a ditch because, that's what you end up with when you drain all the various properties, and change what was, the way the water was originally flowing back there, because that was a wetland. The property you have was a wetland that got filled in. So I'm wondering, where does the water go? I saw that the lemon squeeze, what they did there, they dug back in there, and it's actually kind of deep right over there. And so the water comes from that property, and I guess it comes from another property, and it's sort of like a straight. I mean, it's not very, it's not, I guess, not that deep or wide, but it's long. It goes to the extent of the property, then all the way to the back of it. And I guess, where does the water? Is there any where does the water go from there?
So again, we have not gone that far. Our initial studies, we just dug a couple test pits. We cleared this. I was going to clear this, and we were going to, when we do our engineering of the entire property, we'll be able to do all those calculations. But as I sit right here now, I don't know.
Well, I guess the question was more, does that water flow then to the storm sewer underneath the streets and then ends up in the Wallkill, or?
It's discharging into a pipe where somebody cut a hole in the side. So someone cut a hole in a pipe, and this pipe runs, it comes from behind the condos. And it's a corrugated metal pipe and someone cut a
I
hole in it.
imagine that it feeds into the same system as like La Charla and all and Bangkok and, I mean, don't you?
This is a pipe on,
But it's on that side of the property.
Right, yeah.
No, it's on,
Looking at it,
it's
on the
on
left.
the neighboring
On the left.
property. That pipe is on the neighboring.
So it flows into a pipe, it's got a hole.
Somebody cut a hole in the side.
probably just some storm drain.
Yeah, 15-inch storm drain, yeah.
But when we come in with a plan, we will have a drainage plan, all the calculations, we'll know what is coming into it, where it's going. But again, we just have not done that much.
You know who owns the pipe with the hole in it? Yeah, I assume that, I don't know.
Couldn't tell you.
When we acquired the property, it's been like this. I don't know how long it's been
From
like
a
this.
clarity standpoint, like, is this a separate question from what's in front of us today? 'Cause
Well, who owns it, yes, is. What we're trying to determine is whether we believe that we should place this before the village engineer to study the effect of the stormwater drainage. And the consensus of the board that I'm finding, Rachel excluded, is that it probably does not rise to the level of needing an engineering study.
All right.
So in that case, we're not going to refer this to the village engineer. So we'll ask our attorney, what are our next steps? What else we need to do on this?
Ulster County Planning Board.
Okay, so I'd like to get a motion to refer this to the Ulster County Planning Board. Second,
Seconded.
all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And so Autumn, when is the next Ulster County Planning Board meeting, so they are aware? December 4th. So that kind of places us at a stopping point until we get that before the Ulster County Planning Board and we hear back from them. No, okay,
Right now, we have the public hearing set for December 20th.
correct. So we should hear back from them before the public hearing. If they handle it on the 7th. Okay, very good. Thank you. So next we are having up here PB 2008 6466 Plains Road. How are you? Good, thank you. So, Plains Road Discovery Institute is looking, as we know, just to refresh our memories. It's an application to subdivide an existing 5.7 acre lot into 2 lots. It's an unlisted action. We decided we agreed to do an uncoordinated review. Public hearing is required, however, it cannot be scheduled until seeker is completed. And should not be scheduled until all issues are resolved, since the close of the public hearing will trigger a 62-day planning board. So our next steps are really to listen to you explain the most recent revisions. We're going to discuss the status of the ZBA application for the area variance for the concrete patio. And then we're going to see, look at the draft the CAF part 2 and 3. Is that correct, Ashley? So why don't you lead us through your most recent changes?
Okay, by the way, the public hearing can be waived under certain circumstances.
A public hearing on a subdivision cannot be.
Okay. Yeah, we just corrected our drawing in response to comments that we got at the August meeting. Specifically regarding the showing of the patio and the retaining wall. There were several notes that were corrected. Note number 8, referencing the private road agreement. Note 14 and 16 stating that these will be filed with Ulster County. And regarding the encroachment, we asked the zoning administrator to make a determination to find that it was the retaining wall and slab on grade was non-conforming, but it could continue. I emailed him on August 3rd. I never heard back from him. And Ed Kramer called him thereafter, and we didn't hear back from the zoning administrator as to this particular matter. And we just asked that if the planning board can find that it's non-conforming, and they continue. It's not expanded.
So I could speak to that
Please.
one issue. So I believe at the last meeting, when the applicant was before you, you did refer them to the ZBA for an area variance for that concrete patio.
Yes.
There was a question, I think at that point, it showed it on the plan, but it wasn't showing it as it currently existed. It connects the 2 structures, and now that's been revised, so it's showing the actual condition as it is in the field. Although the patio itself is an existing structure, it's not an existing non-conformity. It's only becoming a non-conforming condition because they're proposing to put a lot line down the middle of it. So although it's an existing structure, it's not a pre-existing non-conformity. So that's why it will require the variance, because you're creating the non-conforming condition.
Okay, and we were directed to the zoning administrator for that determination. We never received that determination.
I think you would, this board's already referred you to the zoning board of appeals. I think you could file your application and get before them, and
It'd still be an encroachment.
it'll still be an encroachment,
We'll do that.
but because it's in the setback, that's why the variance is needed, I guess, for both. It would be a side yard variance for both lots.
Okay,
So I did prepare a proposed EAF part 2 and 3 with a negative declaration. I don't know if the board had an opportunity to review that.
any questions on that? Any comments on that?
I am looking for a clarification though. We had referred this to the ZBA. And you were referring to an inquiry that you made in August, but that was not a submission of a application to the ZBA.
That's correct.
We understood that we were supposed to contact Corey in the building department. And he was supposed to make a determination. And as Neil Michael said, that he attempted to get in touch with him. I spoke with him personally on the phone. He told me that it has to come, the request has to come through the planning board. So I didn't pursue it any further, but we've been sort of staying in touch with Autumn to see if there has been any movement in that direction with Corey.
Referring back to what Ashley had said previously, that it would be referred to EDA because whatever the case, that encouragement and setback voting. So whether or not Corey defines it as a pre-existing or some condition, it's going to be a lot worse. Do I have that right?
Okay, you want to just walk us through the part 2 and 3 for the SEAF?
I'm sorry, I was on the board when this first came. I think it was 2020. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no.
I just can't remember what the intent of the subdivision was, and I'm like trying to go back to my notes. Is it to create a separate entity, or I'm trying to look back in 2020.
Right now, all the property is owned by Discovery Inc.
Okay.
Discovery includes property. We'd like to break out a parcel of it with a house on it in order to sell
Okay. Just trying to refresh myself.
it. And the invitation to come and visit, if it would help to get a better visualization as to what this so-called patio is. It's basically an old slab where chicken coop used to be in 1922. And there's a retaining wall along it. So if it would help, and if you want to come by, you just have to get in touch with me. I'd be glad to show you.
Thank you.
So the short EAF part 2 has 11 questions and you answer them either. First answer is no or small impact may occur. The other alternative is a moderate to large impact may occur. So all 11 in the draft I prepared for you were answered no. Although it does require a variance, it would not, I don't believe, create a material conflict with the zoning regulations due to the nature of the variance being sought. It's not, use variance or something that's really contrary to the code. It's not going to result in a change in the use or intensity of land. They're not proposing any construction as a result of this. It's really just splitting up the existing structures. So that is why 1 through 11 were answered no. And then for part 3, propose a negative declaration stating in the text there that no questions in part 2 were answered. Moderate to large impact may occur, which means there's no reason to go through the part 3 analysis of any impacts. And then if the board agrees, appropriate to adopt a negative declaration determining that the action will not result in any significant adverse environmental effects.
Okay, so our task then is to take a motion on a negative declaration for the short EAF parts 2 and 3.
It could just be a motion for a negative declaration for this application.
Okay.
Would be 20 days.
So, and the second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Rachel?
Aye. Aye.
Okay. So we have, got that part taken care of. And
So I did have a few more comments. I know a lot of them that we raised, they were addressed. Some of the note language was not completely addressed. There was, I know you had the sewage disposal system agreement that's been submitted. And I believe reviewed by the village attorney. I think because these are really more technical nature, language modifications here and there. The one issue we talked about that was a big issue was the existing, in that note, I think that refers to the existing encroachments and modifying that because these are not the patio and the thing, there's existing encroachments on, I believe it's on one of the lots that's not involved in this subdivision, but the encroachments that are gonna be resulting from this subdivision, they're not existing encroachments, they're existing structures, but they're gonna be new encroachments. So I tried to spell out there for your engineer, how to kind of reword that just to make it clear because you're proposing that encroachment easement area. So I could have Autumn email these. I think that would be the easiest way because they really are, I think they're more things for your engineer to look at. And then if she has any questions, talk about them. But I think that's probably the easiest way rather than.
Okay.
But nothing major. I think.
There's just a lot of more technical related detail that needs to be cleared up before we
Yeah,
can.
just to make it clear, because it's unique, there's a lot going on in the property and it's a map that's gonna be filed with the county, so to make it clear, for the public record there. As far as, I think discussed, we need a public hearing, but they need to go to the ZBA, so
We can't really do it until
maybe
they,
as they progress before the ZBA, then, we could put them on an agenda just for setting a public hearing, and they don't even need to come for that, but we could.
you're already before the ZBA?
then
No, haven't gone there. Okay. So do we need to refer them, or we already have referred them to the ZBA?
I think that's really
Um,
all for.
And now we're just waiting to get them before the ZBA. Okay, got it. All right. So last task then is, what do we need? I'm sorry,
I
got,
think that's
that's
all
really
that-
about all we
yeah.
can do. So, yeah, we're just gonna have to wait for the ZBA and then our next, when's the next ZBA meeting? Autumn?
We have the date of the seventh, and the next week after that is the 13th.
Can we tentatively put them on our next meeting, schedule our next meeting in case the ZBA does get a chance to make a decision or review it?
They haven't even submitted an
Haven't
application.
Yeah,
submitted
the
yet?
ZBA is gonna have to hold a hearing, so I think,
Yeah, so it's gonna be December then.
I think Autumn and I could.
It's
Or-
a day earlier than normal. We usually meet on Tuesday, but it's election day.
So we're really kind of at a standstill.
Yeah, I think Autumn will know what's happening for the ZBA and when then they're, they have their hearing and their vote and it's gonna be clear that they're making a decision, then I think we could just put them on an agenda just to set the public hearing and.
Right.
You will probably come to that one, just it'll be set and then they'll be notified of the date and all that.
So they probably won't have the public hearing until the December meeting. At earliest. So,
I think if you could submit the ZBA application before the end of this week and try to get on that Monday.
yeah. That way you can get your public hearing taken care of quickly and then we could, if they, well, I guess if they do the public hearing, then we could look at next meeting, having them on to. All right, so all rest with the ZBA. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so the next application is PB 2113. It is for 54 South Manheim. Come on up, Andy. Mr. Lovell.
Before we begin, Mr. Chairman, I have a question, I think, for our attorney. I live right next door to this project. Am I conflicted in any way?
So if you feel that you can't be fair in your treatment or objective because of your proximity, and then you can certainly recuse yourself, or even if you think you could be, but in an abundance of caution, if you want to recuse yourself and just step down into the audience, you could do that. I know there's enough members for that. Not an issue. You'll just have to do that consistently throughout.
Okay. No, I don't feel I have a conflict at all. I was just, it's a question I have in general. If any project comes close to where I live, or a member of my family lives, am I, by law, by rule, am I conflicted?
Unless
Sounds like I'm
there's,
not.
no, if you're able to stay objective, if, for example, it was a family member of yours that was before the board, then that, of course, would be a different story, and that you would have to recuse for that. But as long as, and it happens in all, small villages, towns where you have, you're gonna have people before you that you're gonna have your neighbors. That's just the nature of how it goes. But as long as you can be objective, then most.
Thank you.
Okay, gentlemen, welcome back. Your new submission, give us a little rundown on this. We'll also want to get some comments from our village engineer, I think we can have, and then we're going to discuss a public hearing. And so go right ahead.
So last time we were here was July. We were talking about the multiple accesses to meet the requirement of the code. We settled on two entrances on the 32, one of them being pedestrian / emergency access. And then we promised to come back with comprehensive submittal, and that's what we did. So in this go around, we responded to the village engineer comments, responded to the latest comments from Ashley's office, a couple different letters from back earlier in the year. We revised the special use permit narrative, and then a couple notable changes. The site plan is really not much different. It's the same plan. A couple of changes that have happened are our landscape architect located a large 48-inch oak tree down at the bottom of the hill back. And so we rearranged the stormwater pond to save that tree. It's a pretty old, big tree. So the pond's a little bit different. We met with the neighbors at Ridge Apartments, and their concerns were headlights shining into the second story and lighting. So we were proposing a 54-inch high bamboo fence along the full line of parking on the south side that would block headlights, be about 5 feet from the edge of parking. And then the lighting, we searched quite a bit for the type of light that we have. It's a 15-foot pole, and it's very specifically designed to have like zero backlight. So it shines completely forward. And we showed the representative Jane from that neighborhood, and we sent them more information, and she seemed happy with.
Yeah, we did see that come through in an email.
We also needed to add a generator. Our sanitary pump station needs a generator by code, so we'll have a small generator in the northwest corner of the building. We showed that on the plan.
It's also required for resiliency for the senior housing. The state requires that we have clean energy standby power. So it cannot be a diesel generator, it will be a gas fired generator that runs the common area of the building, the elevator, the heat, provides working bathrooms, and a gather-in-place area through the community room. We also power outlets in the hallways in case anybody has a breathing apparatus or special need where they require, uninterrupted electric. And we size the generator.
We got our variance from the ZBA for height. Gone, the village board voted on the density modification for the affordable housing. And so we're back to hopefully try to, nail down some of the details on the site plan. And there are some kind of time constraints and issues that we're having on our side that you can describe better than me.
I know this was already received the variance, but I'm curious as to why a 2.5-story building was required to be so tall. Is it 37.5?
There were some architectural elements along the facade line that we worked through early on with it's a while ago, the Historic Society. In our choice of facades, kind of what the look at the street wanted to be. And those architectural elements exceeded the allowed height. So we had to go to the ZBA for a variance, and the reverse peaks, there's a couple of larger peaks that go up. That's what needed the extra relief for that.
It's not necessarily ceiling height or
No.
structural height.
It's
Architectural.
it's strictly, we showed them a zoning compliant plan.
Yeah.
If you recall, there was a,
It's
just not it wasn't a pretty facade. So we went through several iterations, and I brought in some actual visual images of what we were depicting would actually look like. And we agreed on a particular. It's fun. We added some raised beds. And we just kind of left that on.
You want to tell them about the timeline and the funding?
So obviously we're going up to New York State HCR for funding for this project. We were unsuccessful in the last round, and one of the comments was project readiness. Project readiness scores points. The state doesn't want to fund something that doesn't have some type of approval. They closed around December 6th for the next round of funding. So if we're at a place where we can advance this project, I think we are.
What grant program is that?
It'll be through housing and community development.
And it's still, is it all senior housing or?
It's 100% senior affordable. And we have some 30% of median income units, which are 100% voucher units, which will be funded through federal home. Then we have some 50% median units and 60% median units. And we worked the income spread through the local UAC group. We worked with the newer census data to sort of determine, there's a combination of that and working with the village on a tax payment agreement to kind of come up with the unit mix. We did it collaboratively.
So in terms of the December 6th, like timeline, what do they need to hear? I just am curious and not.
A conditional approval would get us our project ready to score at full.
You realize we kind of split, it took us some time to get back from the board.
Yeah, I have an engineer.
Yeah.
We really wanted to come back. What we talked about was
Sure.
coming back with a complete application. So we went through several iterations, making sure that we included everything the board had noted, what we worked through with the neighbors, and then I'm making sure we had the concerns of the village trustees, which gave us a open
Do
area.
you have a relationship with the Seafreeze or the Ridge? I don't even know.
No, it was the residents.
Oh.
More than the property
Because
owner.
right now, what there's like only butted to the road, the back of it is just wooded, right? Like you would,
Well, the one building that's right up against.
yeah, I'm saying behind that is just
Yeah.
woods.
We walked the property with the neighbors to the south. Jane and was a group of about 6, I think, or 7 residents that are right on that building. and just walked with them, heard their concerns, sat down and just drew on a piece of paper what we thought they wanted. And if after it's built, there's a specific tree or something they want added in, I told Jane I'd be happy to plant it. It's, you know, I mean, you can comb it out as much as you want till you put it up and people are actually there. It's like, hey, you know, when this happens, I get this, can we do that? It's sure. No, it's.
Well, thank you for going through that. Next steps, we got to look at any comments from our village engineer. Get anything from that, from Dennis on that? Not on the new update? Okay. Well, actually, we want to kind of guide us through these last bits here.
So I know there was talk about getting comments from the fire department. I don't know that any of it has been received.
What's their input from the fire department around the
Last-
the egress
Yes.
choices and all that?
Early on, there was input about
Yes, for the entrance and egress, there was a comment of approval from the fire department.
Okay, there was.
Yeah, I don't think there was anything else we had asked them to comment on. Look at the fire department over here. Yes, I am. Okay.
He's off the clock.
He's off the clock, okay. All right, so, I don't think there was anything else we actually had asked them to, comment on. So I think that one's been completed.
I just have a question about the parking calculation.
Please go right ahead.
Way I had added it, I was getting 50 spaces.
And it's 49 in the plan.
Yes. Because I think you would have, there's 48 one bedroom at 6.65 spaces per unit. It would be 31.2 are required, but I think you have to round that up to 32. And then that's where the discrepancy was. 48 one
31.2.
bedroom at 65, at 0.65 space per unit, you get 31.2 spaces, which would be rounded to 32. And then you have 3 2-bedroom at 0.85 per unit is 2.55 spaces, rounds up to 3. Total of 35, and then the overflow, you get 1275, which rounds up to 13. So it would be a total of 35 for the units plus 13 overflow plus 2 resident managers to get 50. I don't know if there's a spot you can. And if you want to check my, I could send you this,
Yes.
how I calculated that. Let's see for using just one spot. That's fancy. I believe you had said that the project exempt from the affordable housing, chapter 132 local requirements because of the provision that says it's funded in accordance with the standards of the federal or state affordable housing program and subject to a verifiable regulatory compliance agreement to ensure affordability. So documentation will need to be submitted to show that it's subject to a verifiable regulatory compliance agreement. I think that's what triggers the exemption. And I don't know whether that's something that's not going to come until you get your, so it could, you know, potentially more into a.
I don't know if
there's anything
anyone
you do have on
I'm
there.
just curious. You're laughing. No, I'm just curious because I mean, I do a lot of work with New York City Housing Authority, but I'm just curious about the HCR funding. Is it, what percent do they fund? That's just me. I get out on the
happy
street.
to, outside of the meeting if you want.
Okay, yeah, sorry, it's boring for everyone.
So actually, you were saying about the conditional approval?
One of the triggers in order to be exempt from the chapter 132 requirements is that it's funded in accordance with the standards of a federal or state affordable housing program and subject to a verifiable regulatory compliance agreement to ensure affordability. So there's going to need to be that some way for this board to confirm that it's subject to such a verifiable agreement. So I said potentially as a condition of any you know, future approval, because they likely won't have that agreement in place until we get an approval and then get the funding. Another really minor comment, the bulk table, so it is 2.5 stories. I think if the bulk table says it's less than 2.5. And then if you could also just say the actual dimension of the height that's provided. And the last item, the special use permit standard for senior citizen development requires reasonable access to the means of the facility, such as public transportation and et cetera. I think your narrative indicated that reasonable access to certain facilities, including public transportation and recreation, are there. And there was ongoing discussions with local transportation providers to assist with transportation needs. So I just ask if you would confirm whether you're going to offer a shuttle type of transportation service to satisfy that requirement. I think with Little Pond recently was reported that they offer that to make sure that residents can
Right.
get to doctor's appointments and things that aren't within that quarter of a mile. Satisfy that requirement.
And actually, the requirement, not that the resources themselves are within a quarter mile, but that transportation to those resources.
Right.
Yeah, the reasonable access is within a quarter mile, or that they make provision for regularly scheduled shuttle type services.
Would an existing shuttle system like the New Paltz Loop qualify as a transportation system if there was I'm not sure
Or
where the
does it have
stops
to
are,
be,
but
or does it have to be their
yeah,
own
right.
shuttle system?
I'm not sure how that system at New Paltz works, so whether something would go to the actual property and pick people up, if there needs to be some arrangement between the owner and the.
But the loop won't take them specifically to a doctor appointment. The loop just takes them,
Okay, right.
it's like it's a bus system. And so you have to stop get off at bus stops, so it wouldn't take them directly there. So it appears it would have to be something that would be your,
So we will, I honestly can't remember how we satisfied that. We did work through it. We will not have our own on-property shuttle service.
Mhm.
It's in conflict with what HCR is going to provide. There is dial bus services. We were speaking with, I can't remember his name, from the county who works on the senior initiatives. We
I
did,
think, sorry if I will, I think that if you're doing something in partnership with HCR, it'll be subsidized by a shuttle.
Yeah.
Company or government, yeah. But that will be.
so
So
we
could
help
we-
facilitate that. In other words, our property manager will facilitate those needs. And we did source resources as part of our last round application. The resources are there, but it's not going to be a private charter bus like New Paltz offers.
And is the explanation that the resources are there included in the most current memo, or where would we?
I believe we did
Yeah, we have a narrative.
we did a narrative. I don't know if it's satisfied. I do know the bus stop is right across the street from the property. The local loop bus. I do know we contacted the local senior resources. And those resources are there to take them, through appointment made specifically. And because of their income levels, some of them will qualify for like a Medicaid driven direct pickup and drop.
Well, actually, what would we need to verify that? No.
I think some maybe just further narrative on that one piece, the 21241 paying fee, because I think it didn't, and it might be in there, I just don't recall the discussion on what those resources are that can take people. If it's not, your own shuttle, if it's some transportation, it's gonna take them to places other than what's within the quarter of a mile that they might need to get to.
We'll expand the narrative. Discuss that.
21241. K8B. Okay. And that was it for me. If the board wanted to discuss scheduling a public hearing, I do make a note just for to remind Autumn that because they're close to the New Paltz boundary, the town boundary, the notice has to go to the town clerk as well.
and we can certainly look at doing a public hearing. But you've asked for conditional approval, really can't do that until we get some of these things here, so. So I guess then the next thing is we need to, what is the next, available public hearing date? So, like a motion to schedule a public hearing for this application on December 6th.
We don't have a meeting before then that we can. I see.
Yeah,
Right.
we have a,
Yeah,
how long is it, 10 days? 14, 10 days minimum, 14 days desired. So 10 days.
More on the mail.
Yeah, we're basically willing to do whatever it takes right now.
I would have to go over to them on Monday.
Okay. So then that would make the public hearing on the 15th. Okay, so we are then going to take a motion to have the public hearing for this application PB 2113 on November 15th. Second?
seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So, you guys are on for the public hearing on the 15th.
So these changes that we discussed, all are pretty minor. We can do these tomorrow. We can resubmit along with the narrative and address everything that was discussed tonight and get it in tomorrow. Would the board be comfortable preparing a resolution for that 15th meeting, assuming that all these have been addressed to their satisfaction and nothing else comes up?
That's a tough one. If you have everything, and I know you're putting some pressure on to do this, but I must say that there was a gap there between your last appearance and now.
Right.
So,
Well, it did take us time to go with the village. We wanted to get our ZBA and everything with trustees done. And this is, I mean, going through this, and I think everything is here, the parking calculation, it's all
I think your biggest hiccup is gonna be the public hearing. I mean, we could have everything prepared for this. It doesn't go as planned that day when.
right.
Well, that's
You know.
okay.
Yeah.
So we could
Just
then,
brace yourself. There's a lot of seniors that are gonna show.
we could ask a motion for our attorney to provide a resolution of conditional approval or approval conditioned upon what? The submission and completion of.
You could authorize me to draft a resolution of conditional approval and, I'll review whatever they submit that's new, anything, the items I've raised, I think probably all be able to be incorporated as conditions. Anything for the village engineer, that's one thing that you'll want to hear his, plan overview as well, but just an authorized me to prepare the draft. And then, of course, engineer comes up on the public hearing, that might need to be adjusted, but just a motion
Okay.
to authorize a draft resolution of conditional approval.
So a motion to authorize a draft conditional approval. Second. Aye, all in favor? Aye. Rachel just gave a thumbs up, so that's an aye there.
What will it take for us to get the engineer's comments?
We're just not gonna have to call him tomorrow. This is what it's gonna take.
Because that's gonna be the thing that's not.
Yeah,
gonna make it
sure. Dennis is busy like everybody else, and we're just gonna have to call him and
But this is a really
Explain.
important priority
Yeah.
for this village.
so, Autumn, can you give me a call tomorrow? I've got an office day, and then I can just call Dennis. Tell him that we need his comments back.
And then if there are comments from the engineer that need consideration, we could amend the resolution. with
Right.
time.
Yeah, we can add those as conditions.
Yeah, and I can try to coordinate with him before,
Okay.
see if he has anything to add.
Yeah,
No, I'll talk to him too. But I did go through all of them with Dennis and we addressed them very thoroughly and I'm pretty confident that there might be a couple left, but I'll call him as well.
We on the 15th.
okay,
Great, thank you.
okay.
Bunch of excited seniors.
I know.
Okay, so, final application tonight is PB 2210, 11 Water Street. Application for site plan special use permit to demolish an existing warehouse building and construct a 26-room hotel down there in the Water Street in the Gateway District. The old box factory. So, hello. How are you? So in full disclosure, one of my friends at the gym is their banker, Brian, who's financing it. So and all we talk about is gym stuff, but he is.
Well, in full disclosure, I have stayed at the Woodstock Way 3 times. But
Well, yours is obviously more serious than mine.
and I
So-
do work at the watershed market.
So
Your experience is good with this stuff?
Just kidding. I met you in the coffee shop.
What was it?
I actually do. Anyway, it was great.
But neither of you have any
No,
reason why you can't be objective.
no,
No.
not at
none at all. I just want to make sure that that was completely disclosed. All right, so tonight, what we've classified the seeker as unlisted action. Let's see, referral is going to be required to Ulster County Planning Board. Public hearing is going to be required. So we're going to listen to you, after your presentation. We'll look at some of the notes that our attorney is going to lead you through below, and then I guess we could refer it then to the Ulster County Planning Board, and we could set a public hearing. Think? No?
I think you need to probably move over to secret person has the revised.
Right.
EAF. So
Okay, yeah, right.
keep that in order to refer it to Ulster County, maybe you could make your referral condition upon receipt of that EAF, but
We'll have to just get the EAF first and look at that. So, all right, so we're ready. Go right ahead.
Nice.
You're on, Barry.
You have your drawings out right.
Yeah,
Yeah, I guess I'll turn us around. It helps. I don't know how much people look at the plans, the drawings.
Do you have any of the plans
have
over
digital
there?
I assume everybody knows where this is. There's the old warehouse building.
Right. Put these out too, you want?
Yeah, yeah. pass
Do you
them
wanna
around.
pass
I
these
have
around?
We have digital
Right.
copies too.
Easier.
Yeah.
Sure.
So this is a site that has a current large old warehouse. I believe they made barrels there on hold. It's right up against the old railroad grade. It does have a little remains of a railroad spur that comes down and probably right up against the building. They're obviously going to take that down and put up a smaller footprint building, but we're going to use most of the site with adding parking, drainage, and the back of the building that faces the rail trail is going to have some nice patio areas that we'll talk about a little bit. It does encroach on the right of way of the rail trail, and there's going to have to be an agreement with the village as well as the trail to allow that to happen. We'll start that process.
I spoke to Christie, with the Wallkill Valley Land Trust, and we had a conversation. Our next steps were to kind of put this together. We added our landscape architect, a dear friend of mine that's actually in attendance on Zoom now. And, you know, she put a lot of time and effort into making this, all look very nice. And then Barry put it in his plan that we can talk about when we get to it, right?
Eric, can you describe the encroachment?
Well, if you look, my map, I don't know what you have on the computer, there's a blue line here.
Yeah.
I don't know if I could show that.
No, we
to
have
you.
the same thing, yeah.
It's, it runs through the middle of the patios, basically. It runs
This is a
through
gray
most-
area.
Most of the patios on the north end, and it runs along the patio line on the south end, and then it actually steps down and runs right up against the building, the parking lot, and actually runs through the middle of the adjacent parcel, the adjacent structure there. So, it's
So it's
kind
all
of a-
gonna be above ground parking, no? It's all at grade parking.
Not great, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
It's
and
just,
it bring-
it's
I mean,
so
right-
funny to try to envision this because of
Yeah.
what we know is there. It's really hard. Yeah,
Well, you know,
it's a bigger space than you think because you've seen that, just like that building for so long.
Yeah, that building blocks everything, you
Yeah.
know,
Right.
and it's actually quite a big building,
Mhm.
but you really can't see the whole building to really see how big it is, you know, so it is a little difficult on site, you know, run around, but, you know, it's fairly large enough site for what we're doing here. It's just that outside use, which they're trying to incorporate in with the trail use and yeah, you're gonna have like a cafe downstairs and some other attractions that, you know, hikers would want to visit. You know, we have a bike rack here for people, you know.
So we go to
coming along
the-
trail and-
Do you have the?
Can I just finish the question? And forgive me, because I might not know, what does the blue line denote exactly?
That's the property line.
The thick blue one, because then there's a
The
dotted
thick,
blue
the
line.
thick
Right.
Yeah.
line,
The thick blue line is the owner's property.
that's the ownership.
So then everything outside of that blue line would would require an easement by the
Walker
Walker Valley Rail
Right,
Trail. So
right.
you'd be putting, like, for instance, parking spots on what is considered to be the Walker Valley Rail Trail.
No.
The land is
No.
not village
Well,
property.
It's village property, as I
I'll
understand
be requesting they look to maybe even purchase that.
I think this is all their parking.
So it's an ownership thing.
Parking
not
is
just an
out
easement.
here, and that's the,
In this one, the parking is inside the blue line.
Okay.
That one is out the
Oh,
blue
okay.
line.
all right.
This is add parking.
Yeah.
This is a newer one.
This is, oh, really?
So, okay, so what we're seeing is that on one iteration, the parking is outside of the property line.
This
There's
is-
like
There's one space and a little bit of the turnaround.
And in another iteration, we're showing that,
This is, you should be just looking at the current plan.
Yeah, that's what.
The earlier one was thrown out.
Yeah, you're right.
We did make quite a bit of changes here. We
Yeah,
moved the
I think I'm
dumpster
looking
to a
at the
better
current
location.
plan and I was
It's
just
just top of
trying to understand
You see
the
the line there?
significance of the encroachment, and I see it, and it does include part of the parking.
Yes,
This area we're talking about, right?
yeah, right here.
On the rail.
On the rail trail, right?
And the consideration is either that it would be
Got
a
it.
pretty substantial agreement with the Walker Valley Rail Trail, or a purchase of the village.
Well,
Yeah.
I
technically,
guess village property, but the rail trail has an easement.
easement on it, yeah. Yeah.
we would need both of them to be very cooperative. I think it would be best if they could acquire an MT, you know, that's actually ownership. I don't think it takes away from the trail
We
use.
may have an issue with alienation of parkland though, if it's considered part of public parkland because of
From funding.
because of the rail trail, so. But I think it is important to have those conversations with the village and Walker Valley Rail Trail early on.
Yeah, well,
You know, what
they
the
are.
village is.
We're
Have
engaged.
you spoken with the village as well?
I spoke to the mayor and I reached out to all the council members. Just kind of waiting to find out when the next time I can talk to them all in a, I guess, more formal environment. Yeah, but
Okay,
They-
yeah, I think getting their, input and then, you know, what they, this is their property, how they would,
What they're willing to do.
if one, they're willing to, allow the improvements on there, and then two, what form of agreement would it require? So, because there's also some, on the bottom, is that the.
Part of this is,
Parking lot,
Mhm.
Parking lot that's also, is that then
like, for example, like
road
this-
right away? Or,
this is John.
so you look over.
Right over here.
This property?
Yeah, over there, where you have, Plains Road meets Pencil Hill Road, and then kind of points up to your parcel.
Yes, so well, that's in the town right away. So that would be the driveway in the town right away,
Okay. And
which
just to
we have
make sure,
driveways
yeah,
in the
the
right away
building-
all the time. It's a very irregular shaped right
It's a
away.
very Odd shape, yeah.
And it's a very irregular intersection.
Yeah.
That's why I
And
was,
so we've spent a lot of time trying to make this work so it's safe and convenient. So I don't think there's a problem with that. We're not putting any parking in there. And even if we did, you know, you have we have parking on municipal right of ways all the time.
Right.
You know, so I didn't think that that was an issue out there.
are you adding anything in that area that doesn't exist? Now is the access way there is already existing and the landscape.
Well, I'm just gonna look at the,
And I'm just saying, just
It's all
so that we're gonna be able
asphalt.
for the villagers to make them aware, of, yeah, whatever's going on in there right away. In addition to the-
And it's sticking out into the road.
Yeah, and right now, the building comes out about
existing
here.
building is quite.
No,
close to
I
that.
don't think so. I think
No,
the
and then
existing
it's all
building
It's like
goes to
continuous
here and
pavement.
this,
I-
they're
I moved to see the
proposing
site at
that
all,
they
on
would
the
build
site?
something out. into
Yeah.
the
I
road.
work there, I mean, I know.
So,
Yeah,
Barry,
It's like the road is open for the buildings. There's no.
Yeah, there's
question
a
here.
parking lot for the Water Street Market, and then there's a residence across, which I think
Right.
you've met, Teresa. And, yeah, no, we know. I'm rotating it.
So
like-
we're gonna put a curved barrier that gets landscaped that will define the road right away. Well, right now you come down and, you know, you could
Yeah, no, I got
just
it.
drive right into the paved area in front of the building and not know where you're in the road or not in the road.
Actually, the building
So,
is right
defining
up
that
against the road,
and
but-
making enough space there so, you know, they can plow the road and that's the place the person to stop. As far as the village is concerned.
What's that gonna do to the width of the road? You're gonna make it more
Maintaining the
narrow?
Travel width, what's there now.
Okay.
Yes, I think it's like 18 or 20 feet. I think they vary a little bit and I just maintained that width. I probably have a dimension on that somewhere in there.
So, sorry, I'm just trying to, there's a lot to take it. So is
Yeah,
I'm-
that is fun.
the exit's gonna be onto Plains Road? I guess you could deviate to Pencil Hill, but
I'm sorry, what was the question?
I'm saying, so it looks like the exit from the parking lot is just gonna be straight onto Plains Road? Cause that looks like the furthest point of the property. I guess.
We have a dumpster there and then just one parking spot.
To exit the parking lot.
At the southern end of the
Okay,
building.
yeah.
Right, right.
That entrance is right in front of the stop sign for Plains Road.
Oh, yeah, no.
Yes.
I know.
Put those stop lines on so everybody can see where the.
Yeah. It's just, in general, and this has nothing to do with the project, this is a very difficult intersection right here.
Oh, yeah.
That very sharp turn, so you know what I mean?
You talk about
Yeah, there's-
coming down Water Street and going up Mohawk?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. if we really do that.
I mean, so
Yeah.
my friend Teresa owns that house on that corner and it's it's difficult there. So, I mean, I know she's excited about the project that it's difficult.
So maybe it's only helpful to me, but I think we have to organize this conversation. It sounds like the first thing we touched on was the idea of the encroachment. And I think what I was getting at was how significant is that and how many entities are involved in that? Because that sounds like something that's really got to ramp up and get going. And now we're also all looking carefully at all the traffic implications. The entrances and the egress and the already existing traffic issues that exist that are current in this location. And we probably got to kind of organize each one of those points and get our traffic folks to help us look at that. Right. If you start at the north end, before you even get to the, what seems to be an entrance and exit, that's also, as you know, a hump there with a lot of pedestrian traffic and cars pulling out of Water Street and all that. So there's already a lot of, there's no visibility there. And so that's going to be people coming up and over and having entrance and exit from the north side. Wondering, and then the next one is also an entrance
It's a
and
walkway, exit. but it's just like very dangerous. I mean, in general, it's not your problem to the parent, but.
Yeah, no, I'm aware.
But but it's our responsibility to
Yeah.
not make it worse. And,
No.
and so I think there's a lot to discuss in the traffic part also.
Right, yeah, we totally agree. And in fact, taking this building down is gonna open up a serious line of sight, where the building actually touches the road at this point, where it's a complete blind spot. You can't even, you have to really be careful when you're going around there. If you're walking in that road, you can't see. So, this is gonna change.
Yeah, we're pulling the building, particularly in the north, back quite a distance.
And then also, just if I can just share also in this area, our landscape architect and Ryan and I had discussed waiting for the leaves to fall off the trees so that we can actually see what's going on in there and make a determination of, can we lower a lot of that vegetation so that from where the rail trail and the pedestrian crosswalk is, that you'll be able to see a direct line of sight all the way through. So we've been working toward, making that a lot safer than it is currently.
Okay.
Was there any consideration that these, the openings at the north and in the center of the property could be not bi-directional? So that,
Well, I think they need it bi-directional in some cases. I mean, I looked at potentially eliminating the north entrance, but I think where it's situated and with the clearing, the sight line will be better. And that's actually at the bottom of the hill where it levels off. It's not on the hill. We've given a lot of thought to that. I put the main entrance in where it's right opposite the stop sign. So that, coming in and out, you're, like at an intersection. Once you heading south of that, the aisle's not wide enough for two-way traffic, so that can only be one way. That's why the angled parking there. Otherwise, we would lose all that parking or reduce the line spaces down. I think like 3 or 4 if we did parallel parking. So, we've given a lot of thought, and this is what we came up with. We think this is the best solution.
Okay, so you say we need to refocus, so.
I was saying organize, categorically how we're gonna take these pieces.
What are your suggestions?
Well, the first one was the first thing we mentioned, the encroachment. The second, just thinking about traffic flow, entrance and egress, considerations around lines of sight and all that are being discussed.
And I think I understand that you've done, we live right here and then I walk this way all the time and I think that it's a very narrow road. So the idea of bilateral traffic just is, I know it exists, but having egress, it just scares me. But
I think it would be appropriate if the board wanted to have your traffic consultant review this.
Yeah.
I don't know if the applicant first wants to have some more substantial discussions with the village and rail trail before that, or if they, want this board to start.
Well, let's do this. Let's continue on this and then for a moment here. So you're saying that encroachment, the traffic, what else do you think we should?
In terms of the flow, there's no pedestrian walkway on the west side of Water Street.
Well, what you have is the rail trail. Would be the pedestrian walkway, and then we would provide access where right now there's really no access from the rail trail down to the road. One thing which we've been kicking around and we didn't put on the plan, we've had it on and off
I don't know too many times, it's not on right now, but is a trail at the very southern end, directly from the road to the rail trail. But right now, you have to, you have to go through the facilities,
There's an informal way to do that.
what's that?
Yeah.
There's a walking path there.
Out of
Right now, yeah.
curiosity, because parking is such an issue in the town, do you plan on having like ticketed only, I mean, the Water Street Market, for example, has cars that stay overnight and there's towing is a big
I
problem.
think that's where our management.
I mean,
Right,
I'm just,
yeah.
I know,
That's fine. No, no.
Just
good- good-
curious
good-
because
good-
it
good-
is
good-
such a problem.
What else in terms of this?
So I just wanted to clarify the answer. So you weren't thinking about any pedestrian, any way of improving the pedestrian flow on Water Street on the west side?
So when we're talking about the west side, we're talking about this,
Yeah.
oh,
The water
this
side,
side,
Mhm.
the water,
Side
the
of
water
the-
side,
the riverside.
the river side, yeah, yeah.
Of the street.
Of the street, okay, yeah, so like Barry was mentioning, we did talk about having a path that led from the street to the trail, which we're still completely open to doing.
It's a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
yes, yeah, we're completely open to doing that, so, yeah. Absolutely.
But our guests staying in the hotel, they'll all be directed once their cars are parked, and the whole part of our model is, hopefully our guests are coming to town, they're parking their car and they're leaving their car. And they're walking out to the back of the building onto the rail trail and heading towards town through the rail trail, not going back out onto the west side of the wall. I mean, the way that the interior of the design and how it will flow, it will definitely be, people are going to gravitate to the backside of the property.
I do think, though, it's also going to increase the amount of foot traffic on Water Street. People who just choose to walk on Water Street, and if we are increasing car traffic and foot traffic in that segment there, that becomes a pretty hazardous, which is already pretty hazardous. People come from Main Street and up and over that hump, and pedestrians are constantly in that street, and bikes and everything else. I think we just want to try to, I would love us to consider some sort of pedestrian option on that side of Water Street, that as opposed to just
Well,
there
if we were to
being.
put a sidewalk, I mean, we have the room in that landscape aisle for the sidewalk, bring it up, but my concern would be running the sidewalk up that steep hill. It'd be a very steep sidewalk.
The other one is, the other side is already there.
Which one are you, oh, on the other side, you're
Oh,
talking
no,
about.
I mean, you're talking about on Mohawk that way.
You're talking about on this side of the street.
There's a
right?
sidewalk on that side to
Right.
get to Water Street.
Sure.
There's gonna be I think, suggest a substantial amount of people using the hotel that are gonna come up Water Street to head to the Water Street Market and toward Main Street. And they're all gonna walk in the street.
Unless they are compelled to go up onto the rail trail and over.
Yeah, I
So
think the
that,
rail trail
that's,
would be very convenient.
I mean, it's
Well,
no
it's true.
comment
You
to
Come out
what you're
that
doing. it's
patio and
just
just have a
that's
couple of
just-
steps up to the rail
in
trail.
the middle of
The
the
rail
rail
trail
the
is
rail
flat.
trail, the difficulty to walk.
No, I mean,
Actually,
it honestly is no comment on what you're doing. It's just an existing condition, and
Yeah.
to double
But that
or
would
triple the
change.
number of people there. It's dangerous, that intersection. I get nervous and I'm there every single day. That stop sign, people just fly through. Anyway, well, this is a
So-
lot.
We also have a path, an ADA compliant path that will lead up to the rail trail as well. I don't know if you noticed that, but we have that, and then we have two kind of points of egress to the rail trail from the hotel, so. When you walk into the lobby of the hotel, you will be able to see this pathway that leads directly out onto the rail trail. So I think, it would be as part of our idea to have those people use the rail trail to get back and
Yeah,
forth.
I think it would be hard for the people from the hotel to use Water Street to walk up. I mean, they would, the rail trail would be such a convenient access to go up that way. I can't imagine why somebody would want to take Water Street. Now, that doesn't apply to the existing
Yeah.
residents there, so the existing residents you're talking about using that and being the current problem, we understand that.
And that's
I don't
why we
think-
were
I
planning
don't
on
think the
putting
guests
this
to
to
the
the
hotel
existing
are gonna add
residents
to
that
that.
used to access this all the time.
I mean, the ability, obviously with the path that we're talking about that exists today and improving that path. This seems to be the area that's most difficult to include some sort of upgrade, but up here, I mean, this is our land.
Yeah.
When you got a steep embankment there, you'd have to fill that in, and this would not be so easy to put a sidewalk there.
This is very deep.
Very, very deep.
The difficulty with the rail trail is that it's not maintained. So when it's rainy, slushy, muddy, snowy, the rail trail can be a challenge.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether your guests would want to take that challenge or whether they would say, let's just hit the street and walk up to Water Street Market. It's something to consider.
One of the things that we deal with currently on our existing property is, our property, as you know,
Yeah, I was
undulates
gonna say,
everywhere. It's hills,
I'm like-
and it's all dirt road, and, maintenance to it is one of our biggest priorities, so we're constantly on top of it.
Well, I understand you are for
But
your
this is
property,
not-
but that is not your property. So that's something that relies on, I don't even know who's responsible for
Or
maintaining
actually, the state.
the state to take care of that section of the rail trail. So
Well, this
reality
sounds
probably,
like
yeah.
the start of-
But it's a starting, conversation. So why don't we do this? I think, one of the things that so we can get back on task here, is that we probably, would like to, let Ashley go through some of the issues noted below. Then we'll probably want to, take a vote and see if we want to have our traffic, consultant take a look at this, to give us their opinion on what they believe should be done. And, I think it's kind of where we're at.
We already discussed the issue with the village and needing, the conversation with the village and the rail trail about the improvements in there right away. The board, I believe, at the last meeting asked for a revised EAF. Question 17, which asks about stormwater discharge created, was answered no, but should be answered yes, and then the subparts filled out, and also question 2 asks about other involved agencies, and now we know that the board of trustees. Another, I'm not sure if there's any others.
No.
So to get that
Bless you.
started in order to be able to move the secret process forward. I know there was discussion about submitting a drainage study, which will go to the village engineer once that's done. I don't believe Corey's done a zoning for this one yet, so we should ask him to do that as well. There is a freestanding sign, if you could add the dimensions, the distance that is from the sidewalk or the curb, just to show the compliance with the sign code requirements. The hotel special use permit is subject to special use permit standards, the general ones in section 212, and then also specific standards in 212-41 sub I. So it would be good for the applicant to submit a narrative addressing both the general standards and then also those specific standards as well. And I think there was talk about the restaurant or cafe and whether that's going to be open to the public versus just
Going to be operated by the hotel, under the hotel name. But yeah.
yeah, it's not going to be restricted to just hotel guests. So I think probably discuss that with the building inspector. I'm thinking they would probably need, in addition to a hotel special use permit, and approval for a restaurant or whatever it would be classified under the zoning code. It'll depend on, how you describe that to him, what's the intent there for that portion.
And the parking table accounts for that with some limited number of seating, I would assume? Then in other words,
That would need to be adjusted likely for
if
whatever.
it's two separate permissions, we might have to think about how those get considered together. Because
Yeah, I
the
think
part if your parking is squeezed out just right and you have a busy cafe, it's not gonna be that way anymore. Meaning if your parking is scoped out for a full hotel and maybe give some consideration to the cafe, my initial understanding is that the cafe would be for hotel guests only, but if it's open to the public cafe and it becomes popular, I think the parking table goes out the
Well,
door.
I think, what I was saying is, the hotel, the cafe is for the hotel guests. The state of New York doesn't allow it to be just for the hotel. The state of New York is going to say, if you have a liquor license, you can't, unless you're a private cause, you have to allow anyone in. So, but we won't be
Advertising to the
advertising
general
a
public.
restaurant as a general public restaurant. It will be there for our guests. It's not something, our type of service that we will be doing will be more like a lounge type environment. You know, not full service. No.
Yeah, but hotels with a nice lounge are a destination, so people will come
Sure.
and we'll want to account for that.
You're saying you want to, it's open to the public, you want to see additional parking to that.
I don't know how that 30 spot takes into account the potential usage of the cafe. So,
Yeah, so the parking requirements for the hotel, they've been, let's use there, 1 space per bedroom plus 3 spaces for staff for every 20 rooms. And then it provides where facilities such as restaurants, health clubs, et cetera, open to the general public are provided. The planning board shall, in accordance with site plan review, determine the additional number of on-site parking spaces required based on standards for comparable activities also in the section. So I think you could look
Wait,
to
based on,
these standards for those, so the restaurant has its own standards, so to look at those for comparable.
Okay.
But as the off-street parking requirements for non-residential uses and guidelines for this board versus the mandatory residential, if based on the description of how it's gonna, you know, the type of restaurant or cafe it's gonna be, or to determine how many additional are required for that.
Something, the existing restaurants that are in town, many of those, I assume, don't have any sort of parking. How is that determined?
that's,
If they have, well, I'll let you.
So it depends on, you know, whether it's been there for, you know, forever without any on-site parking. Other times they have some limited on-site parking. A lot of times they'll show that there's available existing parking within, I think it's 400 feet. I know that's in the fee. I'm not sure if that provision applies in.
There is zone too that doesn't require parking.
Well, about no,
Going through it.
maybe limited.
well, it requires justification of pre-existing parking being adequate for the use that's being proposed.
right, and
Yeah.
most of the restaurants and other businesses in town say, well, there's ample on-street and public parking nearby within 400 feet.
A lot of
in the
the
business district.
restaurants that don't have their own lots happen to be situated within the municipal parking lot, like right around there, so that's their backup plan. But for those, like, for example, right across Field to Daughter, which is now Thompson Brothers, they have their own, anything at the Watershed Market, they share that.
And there's a formula by seating capacity.
So if, to that point, if there's a form by seating capacity, then our seating capacity is based off of the existing parking that we have for our existing guests, dining rooms. Does that make sense?
So that would mean, that would assume that you're not inviting any guests other than those staying with you.
No, but I'm saying, but if it's based off of seating, right? No, so if we're saying, okay, for every 3 seats, you need 1 parking space. I think that's what it is in the town of Woodstock. So essentially, we have 35 parking spaces. Now, we can essentially have, you know, based on those numbers, we can have 100 seats in this account.
But
No,
it's a
true, but you
cumulative
can't-
Analysis, so if you have 30 are required for the hotel alone,
Yep.
then what's the additional that's required for the restaurant? based
Right,
on-
right. Yeah, you can't apply them to both.
And, you know, there's an ongoing conversation we could have about whether we're gonna require that parking to accommodate the number of diners that may come to the property that are not also hotel guests. we're not motivated, I don't think we're motivated as a planning board to pave any more of our village if we don't have to.
Right.
Yeah.
So we could all discuss that, but I think that there's already, as you probably know, a real parking constraint in that area. And there's a private property owner of Water Street Market who I'm sure wouldn't be satisfied with people parking in his lower lot there,
No, and I think,
which will happen all day if you don't have the spots. And
and
so
I think McCaffrey's not willing to donate his.
And so that, I think it'll be, and I completely understand why you'd want to have a cafe, so we have to do it.
Can I ask, being that the rail trail is kind of a public right of way, does that count toward, any, not that it's parking, but that would be where a lot of people would access that come from all over the rail
I
trail?
think that that's an argument that any business could make.
Sure, okay.
Because, I mean, I've been on
I
this
think
board
it's
for
different.
the village, the guy came from, Clemson Brothers, and he said that everyone was parking there for walking on
Yes.
the rail trail, and it was like, I mean,
But you're saying something different. You're saying, isn't it reasonable to assume that most people would be coming by walking on the rail trail to get to you?
oh, that's right.
Some would, some drive.
Yeah, but we're not gonna, so in terms of advertising, we have no intention of advertising on this side to any, vehicular traffic about a cafe and a
I know.
hotel that's really mainly for the hotel guests. You will be able to see people out here that are sitting down, maybe having a cup of coffee or something as they're passing by. So if that's,
I wish it was that subtle, but living here is like, it's insane. I mean, we just have to plan for the lunacy that is.
We don't have to
Well, I mean-
encourage people to drive. Like,
No, I mean,
we
of course,
have
but I'm saying
the
we get-
ability
we
to
get
say
so much.
they don't need more parking spots.
100%. From
perhaps
August
we-
through
Right.
November, what do we see? The last couple of weeks have been insane.
Yeah.
We just have to plan.
Right.
I'm not
So-
encouraging it. to
So
be-
if we don't
don't have
add
it,
more parking spaces, then I think it will discourage people from driving down there and actually encourage people to use the rail trail.
Well, the parking spaces that they have there, the parking that's available would be Water Street Market. John Cohen has that one lot. That's
Neither
across
of them
from
allow
Ruby
people to
Blueberry,
have
but
people
neither
there.
one allows people.
we spoke to that.
I mean,
I would
and
sell
there's-
my,
Sojourner Truth Park, that's public parking spot right down the rail, parking lot right down the rail trail.
Yeah.
there's public parking by the waste treatment plant, also on the rail
well,
trail.
residents ideally, like, they would follow that, but I think the issue is not residents.
Right.
Residents walk, they do all
Yeah.
the other things.
Yeah.
It's just weekend traffic anyway.
Well, that's something that I think that we probably need to have a more purposeful discussion about, that we can plan for in one of our next meetings to really give it, and that time that will also allow you time to look at what available parking is and come up with some ideas on how you want to address both the semi-public nature of your restaurant and the semi-private nature of your restaurant, in the sense that it's just for the public, for the hotel guests.
And who do we speak to in the town regarding like the type of concept, and they'll be able to determine the parking arrangement?
It's in the, yeah,
Yeah,
it's in the code and it's us.
and I think depending on what, if it's gonna be a restaurant, so if you could maybe describe what,
So yeah, I guess that's,
because there's restaurants, there's outdoor cafes, there's different,
There's gotta be something for, every single hotel has a hotel lobby bar, right?
Well,
So
we-
it can't possibly be two separate.
We don't have hotels per se in the village, they are in the town. The one that's up by the thruway is in the town, both of them. And there are no other hotels, there are bed and breakfasts in town. But, and they have
Well, neither of them
on-site
have
parking, but
lobby
they don't
bars,
have lobby
yeah.
bars, they don't have public
That's what I'm
access.
thinking, like in the building code, which is obviously different, a hotel, they take that into consideration, that there is a lobby bar.
That's interesting, and I don't
So
know
just
if it
that
is, I
maybe
mean,
it's
this,
in the chart for
quite
what's
honestly, this is
happening.
the first time we're actually getting to experience this.
But there are analogs to it, like, for example, the apartment building known as Zero Place. It has a certain number of residents that are expected to, units that are expected to require parking spots per unit per bedroom. And then it also has a retail, floor of retail establishments.
Right.
And there's an additional parking requirement to account for the retail establishments.
Yeah.
And we're even thoughtful enough to say, well, in the evening, the residents are home and their parking is up, but the retail establishments are down. So,
And that's how they balance it
and
out.
that, and so
Yeah, I
there's
mean,
tables
I'm a
about
member
this.
of the gym there and I park there,
Yeah.
but I don't.
So there's, you know, there's code that says what would be required, and we could even look at some usage and we could, and, you know, together.
Yeah.
And to Zach's point, we're not encouraging more parking and
No.
driving,
No.
but people are gonna come from places and wanna show up there and you're, you know, Lord willing, your rooms are gonna be full and then there's gonna be nowhere to park, and that won't be good for your business either.
Just out of curiosity, because I happened to your, is it gonna be like the same concept in terms of the cafe that, or the coffee shop that's there, like when you check in and?
Yes, it's gonna be all within the same space, and like, you know, I mean, transparency, I mean, we're not looking to run a full service restaurant. We don't want that sort of operation at all. You know, in the world that we're living today, running a restaurant business is not attractive. But we do want the hospitality side of it. You know, we want our guests to be able to come, enjoy the area, come back at night, have a glass of wine, relax. The state of New York is going to make us serve food, but you know, like many wine bars and establishments like that, these small plates, charcuterie boards, cheese plates, stuff like that. This is not going to be a place where you can sit down and have a 3-course meal and hang out. It's just more of like a pass-through for our guests as they go out into the remainder of the town and enjoy the resort.
Because they can walk.
So if you look at the
Which is nice.
definition, in the definitions in the zoning code for, there's a bar / tavern, and then there's a restaurant, and look at those and see what you think you fall under, and then each one has their own, you know, parking. I don't think you are necessarily gonna need 2 special use permits, but the question of what the additional use is gonna be classified as from a parking standpoint is how you can address that. So figure out what you think you fall under, and then look to the parking, what additional parking is needed based on that.
We don't even, also in our current plan that we're proposing, we don't even have a lot of seats. It's just kind of a lobby
Right.
lounge and a bar area.
Based on seats, for a bar.
Tavern.
No chairs, just kidding.
Yeah. Standing room only. Yeah. Just kidding.
That's the variable you can control.
Yeah.
One space for each 50 square feet of gross floor area.
So,
One space for each 50 square feet of gross floor area.
of the food and beverage.
For a bar, and then restaurant has one space for each 3 seats to go into service, so.
Take a look at those. And then, what else we need to do? We've gone through some of the, all the issues here. So really the next step is take a look at that, get some understanding of it. We will have you back and hopefully we'll be able to get the, let's see, what prevents us from doing public hearing?
I think you still will need some more information.
Yeah.
And you're
Other
not
maps, and then,
you need the EAF, you need.
yes, yeah, that's it.
County, you need to hear from the village on their thoughts on improvements in their area. I would ask also that you submit an updated owner's endorsement and site visit consent. So the county records say Water Street Trails LLC is the owner. And so the paperwork should be signed by someone who's a member of the LLC and identifying their role, member, manager.
Yeah. Well, I did, but I can do it again. It's fine.
Okay, if we can run all those things through Autumn, that way we can have one person who's,
We're in touch.
okay.
No problem.
Okay,
Did you want to refer it to your traffic consultant?
yeah, oh, yes, definitely. So, want to get a motion to refer this to, our traffic consultant, Provident, DTS Provident, Carlito Holt.
Who's the consultant?
DTS Provident Design Engineering, 1 North Broadway, White Plains. Carlito Holt is our contact there.
I'm sorry, who's the engineer?
Carlito, Carlito, Holt.
Sorry, I thought that was going to be that, so there were. I'm sorry, I said that earlier.
I guess, well, it's up to,
Or there would be.
Well-
the applicant wants to wait for, so obviously that's gonna be an added expense for the traffic consultant. Do you wanna have discussions with the village board first to see in concept where they feel about this design, because it so heavily relies on their property?
I think so.
Okay, so then maybe
Yeah.
hold off and then you have those.
November 9th. Okay.
Do we have a planning board representative? Yeah.
That would be a good idea.
Seems like we
Zach,
wouldn't
did you
want
just volunteer?
to do this in silos.
November 9th, that is, next Wednesday, not tomorrow, but next Wednesday.
I have something that evening.
I work out.
Wow.
No, I swear to God.
I can.
Well, it's all on
So,
YouTube. We can
yeah.
just watch the meeting.
Why don't you plan on the 10th, and then once you send me a note, and I'll try to join, I mean, on the 9th, and I'll try to join you on the 9th. I have something early on the 10th. But I can be there for part of it. Just give me a text and I'll try to remember. Okay. Does that kind of clear everything else right now for the, our assignments?
And yes, except for the referral to the Ulster County Board. Do we do that
Ulster County Planning Board.
simultaneously or?
You'll need to wait until
Yeah.
at least you get the revised EAF,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that referral is supposed to include everything that the board will rely on to be able to make a determination of significance. So
Okay.
if they do it now, they'll just have to, well, at the minimum, the EAF, I think here, they're gonna probably
Right.
want whatever this board wants for traffic, they're gonna want, copies of that as well, so I think they'll need to get a little more information before it's.
Fair enough.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone, for your time. Thank you.
So, Autumn, a little request, for our next meeting, if we can have, unfortunately, we can have more of the physical paper of some of these things like the EAFs and the like, so that we can go through them, as we have to plow through a lot of this, it would be helpful.
Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
I like.
I do,
Yeah.
yeah,
I'll do my thing.
yeah. Okay, so the, next thing we need is a, motion to adjourn. All in favor?
Seconded.
Second, all in favor? Aye. Rachel gives us a thumbs up. Thank you, Rachel. We appreciate you
Thank
coming.
you. Sorry.
Okay.
Feel better soon.
Feel better.
Thank you.